Good evening, all. Today I'll be talking to you about the evolution of the calculator. I picked the calculator because I had a funny story back in prep school that happened to me that made me realize about all the different variations of the calculator and how it'd be something that I'd like to research and something that'd be interesting to me, especially after what I went through. 2 years ago, I went to a prep school. It's called Christian Academy. I had this pre-calculus class with this teacher who was an excellent guy. I showed up with this calculator. It was called the TI Inspire. Um, on the course description list, it said I need the TI Inspire X. I didn't think it really mattered, so I showed up with the TI Inspire without the X. The calculator costs close to $150. I showed up, the teachers didn't accept it. He said I couldn't take the course without the right calculator. Um, just because it had an X, I guess that I couldn't use the calculator. I had to go make another purchase close to $200 about the TI Inspire X that had that one extra feature that wouldn't the TI Inspire didn't have. So I guess I learned my lesson there. Opened my eyes about how many different calculators there are and how astonishing it really is. I've waited until I finished my last final to film this. I wanted to come home back to Maine. I wanted to show you guys something funny that I was going to start my presentation on that. I knew this was going to be funny. I knew that it was going to be there. So I went downstairs, opened my junk drawer. I found five different calculators, five different types of calculators, all doing the same thing. This first one I found, all different Texas Instruments, Kaiso, whatever, all different types of different calculators too, all having the same purpose though. Five different calculators in one drawer, so I thought that was kind of funny, just to show you that there's so many different variations, and even your cell phone is a calculator too, and the computer, and I have 10 at my fingertips right now that I could use for a calculator. So I've decided to group the calculators because there's so many of them into three different categories, each one having its own significance to the people around the world. Um, the first one, the group I'm talking about, will be the mechanical calculators, something you're doing by hand. So the first calculator ever invented, 2000 BC, was called the abacus. It used a bead on a rod that you slid back and forth. Once each bead crossed across the rod, you moved on to the next one up. Each one representing tens, hundreds, thousands. It was used for addition and subtraction, so it wasn't really heavy duty, but it lasted 3,600 years, so it held its own until John Napier um, started talking about logarithms with his other coworkers. Once logarithms came about, um, they implemented they furthered the evolution of the calculator, and the other mechanical calculator that came about was the slide rule. The slide rule was used all up until the 1980s, 1990s, because you hear people all the time, your parents, old teachers talk about how they had to use a slide rule. They didn't just push buttons and answer popped up magically. They had to do it by hand, just like Abacus. Everything was done by hand. Um, so the parents always stress about how easy it is. And in my freshman year in math class, my teacher actually showed me how to use the slide rule. A lot more difficult than the calculators we used in high school, and that's for sure. The test would have took a lot longer, I feel like. The next phase of the calculator, so first the mechanical, the next is the electronic age and the business world. So these were kind of like the transistor calculators, the ENIC calculator and the ANITA calculator, all used for business. The first one I'm going to be talking about is the ENIAC, is the electronical numerical integrator and computer. So this was a computer and a calculator at the same time. This was implemented in 1946. Um, this had everything. It could do everything. This computer was 1,000 times faster than the electromechanical computers and could hold 10-digit decimals in its memory. Yeah, it could do that, but it weighed 27 tons and it took up 18,000 square feet. So it wasn't your ideal desktop computer, but it did do everything at a larger scale, I feel like. But look what we have now. We have even a smaller scale. So that just opens your eyes immediately about how things have changed over time. and the evolution of the calculator in general. The world's first electronic desktop computer, though, came about. These were the computers with the valve and the tube computers, where the was the ANIT, which was a new inspiration to accounting. That's what it was called. Tens of thousands were sold worldwide, and they had the push button key layout that did everything electronically for them. Tube calculators came about, and then finally the transistor calculators came about. The transistor calculator that came about was the ELKA22. It was important because it introduced the first square root button. This became inexpensive era. So after this last phase, this phase was the end. This is the end of the second phase, and it ended the expensive kind of, people could finally afford pocket calculators, and it was affordable for the consumer, which leads me into my last and final phase, which is like the calculator, the pocket calculator, and the future of the calculator in general. The Cambridge was the first low price calculator that was implemented that people could finally afford. Sinclair invented it, and he was the owner of Sinclair calculators. This was affordable for people, but it had the bulgy back on the calculator. So as you can imagine, it had the bulgy back on it. After that, this started the calculator wars officially, because prices were dropped. People finally could afford these things, and now it was who had the fastest, who had the smallest, who had the best calculator around. This was actually called the Calculator Wars, which is kind of funny, a war over calculators. The five major companies that were part of the wars were the Sharp, Texas, HP, Canon, and of course the Kaiso. Replacing the board transmitters with integrated microchips. That's what the next step was towards the pocket calculators. Designing less power-hungry electronics and displays that could run on batteries, developing slimmer and simpler control mechanisms. So that was the goal for all five of those companies to accomplish during the calculator wars. The Casio FX700G, the new kids on the block that came about, implemented the first graphing calculator, which put them on the market. And this is the type of calculator I have by them right now. You can see that. It proved the concept in large display and capability to handle 82 significant functions, along with manual computation for basic arithmetic, along with programming mode. So if you think about it, this is a graphing calculator today. This is what I had to use in high school to graph my geometry equations. I'm sure a lot of people have these today. This is a $100 calculator just sitting in my drawer too. I don't know. There's so many around. I don't even know. There's so many. It's mind-boggling. That's why I did my presentation on it. Today's calculators, though, they're everywhere. Like I said, they're everywhere and around. I have 10 at my fingertips. They're in our backpacks. They're in our pockets. They're on our computers. Although calculators, it's weird to think that there's so many of them. Just like all the things around us, once there's abundance of them, they start to diminish. People have a bunch of iPhone 3s, they go to iPhone 4s, and it keeps going up, iPhone 5. But the one constant that stays with them is that they're cheap and affordable. Like I said, if professors or teachers want you to have a calculator in the course that they're giving, that they'll write it on the list, the little list, then your mom will have to go pick it up at the store. I know 5th and 6th graders must have to do that, and they just keep implementing the calculators. I mean, for me, I love the calculator because personally, pushing in the buttons on the calculator helps a lot. It's a lot different. It's weird, but like if you think about it, it helps more than if you were typing it on a screen or thinking in your head. There's times that I triple check my equations just on the calculator to make sure it was all set, because I I guess I rely on the computer more than I rely on myself. It's kind of weird, but that's where the world's going. There are times I really would. I'll just type in the equation 3 different times just to make sure it's right. My calculator, the one I bought that's at school now, I don't have it at my house right now, but I wish I did. I forgot it. You can download things onto the computer. You can print things. It's awesome. I don't even know what it can't do. Literally, it can do everything. It bends over backwards. It took my whole class. It took my whole course when I bought that calculator, and he told me to buy it. It actually helped it. I typed in everything that was given to me on tests and whatnot, and it answered it for me. I don't know how, but I guess it was really worth it. I haven't seen a calculator better than that. I thought this was the best thing you could get until I got the other one. It's different. It just shows how far the calculators have grown from a 27-ton computer that implemented the same thing that this can implement. Is kind of mind-boggling to think. Just shows how far we've grown in the calculators, how the technology is constantly evolving and constantly reinventing itself to make it smaller and better for us, to make it easier for us on our cell phones, no matter what. It's always trying to better itself for humanity to make things easier for us. This concludes my discussion. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope I didn't talk too long about too many calculators. I picked my favorite ones. Tried to keep it short for you. Hope you enjoyed it. Learned a little bit something. I enjoyed the class this semester. Thank you so much for listening to me. Have a great rest of your year. Merry Christmas.